In the second year after I'd cleared the route, I confessed to my frigid husband that it was all fake, and prepared to leave. He simply said, "Oh." The system sneered, "See? He only ever loved the heroin." But that night, I found him sobbing, wearing our dog's collar. "She doesn't want to sleep with me anymore. How am I supposed to go on?" I was stunned. 2 years earlier, I'd dropped into a sweet pet novel and become the male lead's vicious ex-wife. I'd risked my neck to haul the male lead down from a rooftop. But he wasn't grateful. "Don't waste your time on me, Miss Clark. I'm not interested in you." He was hard to pursue. Every chance encounter in his eyes was just something I'd staged. "I have nothing worth taking. If Miss Clark hopes to get something out of me or have a little fun, you're counting on the wrong man." I shook my head. "I'm not looking for fun. Alan Smart didn't believe a word. "Then what do you want?" "I want to sleep with you." I wasn't lying. The first moment I saw Alan Smart, I wanted to sleep with him. I'd never seen a man so beautiful. In the real world, I was the least likable kid at the welfare home, taciturn, clueless about currying favor. By 18, no one had chosen to adopt me. I lived alone. I got used to it, but I still felt lonely. I always thought if there were someone to stay with me, eating popsicles together when it was hot, sharing warmth when it was cold, that would be something. I envied those earth-shaking romances, too, but whenever I met someone I liked, all I dared do was sneak a glance at his back. Later I became a professional boxer. People found me unapproachable, not like a girl. Even little kids cried when they saw me. Seeing Alan's face flush with anger, I hurried to apologize. "Sorry, if that offended you, I won't say it again." I assumed he hated me, so I kept my distance. But I still had a mission, so I had to keep Alan safe. I shadowed him every day, quietly, and whenever someone looked ready to harm him, I moved first and took care of it. I thought I would muddle through like this until the heroine came back to the country. I didn't expect Alan to seek me out a year earlier. He said he was preparing to inherit his parents' company but needed someone to marry. And since I had no ties to the company, I posed no threat to him. I was the best candidate he had at the moment. Before we got our certificate, Alan asked what I wanted. Fame or profit. Whatever it was, he'd do his best to meet it as a return. I shook my head. I couldn't take those with me. And Alan was on the rise. Taking over his parents' company wouldn't be easy. Arrangements and handshakes everywhere cost money. "Then what do you want?" I thought a moment and still pointed at him. This time I hadn't even spoken when he guessed what I was about to say. He refused cleanly. "That's not on the table." I was a little disappointed, but it was within expectations. The system had told me long ago, the male lead might be forced to marry me, might repay me, but he would never love me. Then give me a home. "And I want to raise a dog." I showed him the dog I'd just rescued from a dog peddler a few days earlier. It was living with me in my rented room. Alan agreed. In real life, I hadn't managed to save my puppy. At least here, I wanted to give him a warm home. Though our marriage wasn't the harmonious duet I'd imagined, it counted as mutual respect. I had no family. Now Alan and puppy were my family. I cherished this bond and guarded that kinship with care. Soon the system came knocking again. It said the heroine was about to return and told me to hurry up and get the divorce done. Once their feelings stabilized, it would help me leave this world. For a moment, I hesitated. The system was speechless. "Don't tell me you've really started to treat the male lead as family." "Come on, the male lead belongs to the heroine. If she hadn't gone OOC to pursue a PhD abroad, skewing the plotline, I wouldn't have dragged you out of that car crash to patch this whole dot. If the male lead felt even a sliver for you, he wouldn't have gone this long without once looking you in the eye. In the system's telling, Alan was just a male lead in a book, lacking any true will of his own, a puppet yanked along by plot. I wanted to defend him. He was cool by nature and didn't talk much with me. But he remembered I hated scallions. He didn't care for dogs, but slowly accepted puppy's presence. Whenever I went on a mission, he made sure someone was watching out for me. He didn't say anything, but he did everything. The system didn't want my explanations. It only pressed me. "Make it tonight, tell Alan you want a divorce. I waited at home a long time for Alan. At 7 in the evening, he came back. "Sorry to keep you waiting. Next time, go ahead and eat, don't wait up for me." As always, Alan washed his hands first and ladled me a bowl of soup. "Alan, there's something I want to say." I fought to hide the tremor in my voice. "Actually, this past year, protecting you wasn't because I liked you. Those things I said about wanting to sleep with you were lies, too. I've thought about it. We're not a great fit, and I don't really want to be your bodyguard anymore. My hands are sore, they ache, and the scars they leave are ugly." I poured it all out at once. I didn't dare look up at him. Alan lowered his head and didn't react. After a long time, he only answered blandly, "Got it." I opened my mouth to say more, but he stood and cut me off. The company's a lot today. I'll go to the study first. He tipped his head back, as if his eyes were tired, and pressed the reddened corners. Yet as he left, he still noticed I was barefoot on the floor. The floor's cold. Remember to wear your slippers. He crouched and put them on for me. After he went to his room, the system was smug all over again. Hilarious. He couldn't care less whether you like him, and you're this worked up, like a clown. I told you, he only falls for the heroine. When he's successful, he won't need your little kindness at all. Something heavy pressed on my chest. I couldn't name it. The system kept yammering, pack tonight. Move out in a couple days. Don't make things messy for the heroine. I murmured, okay. I couldn't sleep. I went out to walk. Without knowing it, I wound up near the homes of the people who had stabbed Alan in the back. He'd suffered so much then, all because of them. Lights blazed. Their laughter inside was a knife in the ear. Soon they came out, joking and chattering. I couldn't hold back and gave them a proper beating. Watching them writhing and howling on the ground, my heart finally felt lighter. Alan and I had no families. We'd only happened to collide. His life from here on would grow happier and happier. And I would return to the life that was mine. That wasn't so bad. The next morning, Alan left for work early. I went out and hired a lawyer to draft a marriage of convenience settlement. You're sure you only want this much? I nodded. The lawyer tried to persuade me, Alan has money. Even in a breakup, asking more as compensation is perfectly normal. Are you sure you won't reconsider? I won't. The system couldn't fathom it. What self-sacrificing performance is this now? Do you misunderstand how rich he is? A single jacket of his costs more than you're asking. Honestly, you're doing this to yourself. But Alan's money hadn't come easily. I knew how it felt to have no one to lean on. Getting here alone, Alan must be exhausted. I'd studied prices in this world. So long as I didn't splurge on luxury every step, this sum would last me a very long time. The lawyer, seeing I couldn't be swayed, followed my instructions. When I came home with the divorce papers, I heard a metallic clanking from inside. I thought we'd been robbed and rolled up my sleeves to charge in. I didn't expect to see Alan. Unless I misremembered, he'd told me he'd be working late at the office. Yet there he was with Puppy's collar looped around his own neck, howling like a ghost. I prepared for so long. And she says she doesn't want to sleep with me anymore. How am I supposed to live? Puppy, tell me what to do. Puppy lay beside him, whining, staring resentfully at his favorite collar. Apparently feeling his rights had been trampled, he gathered himself and pounced to snatch it back. Alan clutched the collar tight, sounding even more tragic. My wife doesn't want me, and even the dog bullies me. I'm done living. Puppy rolled on the floor, furious. All at once, he caught my scent, sprang up, and sprinted to me with shining eyes. His front paws landed on my thighs, tail thrashing, and he barked nonstop. I could hear it, he was lodging complaints about Alan. At the same time, Alan saw me. He froze. 1 second, 2 seconds, he flung the collar away, straightened his tie, and said airily, just playing with Puppy. Why are you home so early? Was that scene just my illusion? Like nothing had happened, Alan tossed the collar back to the dog. I think this collar's too small. Puppy isn't a pup anymore, we should replace it. I couldn't tell if he was muttering to himself or speaking to me. Either way, he didn't spare me a glance. If you've got time, pick a few you like. Buy extras to keep at home, get a larger size. He walked past me, composed as a gentleman. He only made it a few steps before his foot went numb and he nearly pitched over. What's this? He'd noticed the divorce agreement on the table. I opened my mouth to speak, but he casually tossed the pages into the shredder. Oh. Scrap paper. Me. According to the system's timetable, I had to cut ties with Alan this week so he could reunite with the heroine returning from abroad. Good thing I'd prepared a backup. I pulled it from my bag and held it out to him. It's not scrap. I won't bring you trouble. I only want to take Puppy with me. At once, Puppy patted over, the picture of loyalty. Whichever way Mom goes, I go. Alan blanched. How could that be? Realizing he'd overreacted, he backpedaled. I'm not saying I won't agree to a divorce. It's just, Puppy's so attached to me, he can't live without me. I wavered. When parents split, it's the child who pays. Alan looked truly torn. How about this? I have an urgent business trip. Let's talk about the divorce after I get back. A business trip? So sudden? He was still wearing boxers. Maybe change your clothes first? Alan bolted out the door too fast. Worried something had gone wrong at the company, I called his assistant to confirm. President Smart had no engagement tonight. Oh, apparently he does. The assistant said Alan had gone to meet a renowned young professor in the medical field, newly returned from overseas. An old acquaintance of Alan's, supposedly. After I hung up, the system pounced, didn't expect the heroine to return this fast. She must have learned the male lead's company needed her. UVE signed the divorce, move out now, don't get in their way. Per setting, the male lead's possessiveness for the heroine is off the charts, 10 times a night, you get it? Never mind, you wouldn't, you've never even been in love, never tasted a man. As if the system had. I packed my things and left with puppy in my arms. All arranged. Stay a few days in a place in the west of the city, left by the original host's mother. Soon I'll send you out of the province. When the leads are stable, I'll return you to your real world. Okay. Got it. Good. I'll go track their progress. I'll contact you when it's time to move you out. The metallic voice vanished from my head. I hugged puppy tighter. He barked sweetly, and I didn't feel so alone. I rubbed his head. Don't worry about Mom. Mom can fight. No one can bully Mom or puppy. The apartment wasn't big, but it was very clean. The original host's mother had left some cute furniture. The neighbors were warm. Seeing I'd just moved in, they kept thrusting fresh vegetables into my hands. Once settled, I picked up a part-time shift at the convenience store downstairs. Working with me was a 19-year-old girl. Miss, you're so pretty. Do you have a boyfriend? I blinked. Me? She launched into pitching her brother. My brother's really handsome. Do you want to consider him? You could all have dinner tonight. I thought and declined. I have to walk my dog after work, no time. She drooped. Oh. Next time, then. My brother's always free. I reflexively checked my phone. Alan hadn't called in days. No message about going to the registry either. He must have just reunited with the heroine and had no time for this mess. After work, I took puppy for a walk in the park. My mind drifted. Then a call came in. Madam, President Smart's been in a car accident. Would you come to the hospital to see him? He's not doing well. When I reached the ward, Alan was perfectly fine, lying in bed chatting with his assistant. Only then did my heart drop back into place. In my panic I'd forgotten, he was the male lead. How would the male lead ever be in real danger? I stepped into the room. Alan, if you're fine, then I'll just... Hearing my voice, Alan looked up suddenly. Wife. Aren't you taking me home? Faced with those guileless, earnest eyes, I finally sensed something was off. What's wrong with him? The assistant tapped his temple. Here, something's off. Doesn't the Smart family have top doctors? Have they taken a look? At that, the assistant's eyes welled. Madam, while President Smart was away, the company flipped overnight. Even his villa's been sealed. They're accusing him of embezzlement, throwing every kind of mud they can find. We can't keep his accident quiet for long, he can't stay in the hospital. He paused, then continued, there are already people probing outside. Madam, could you let President Smart stay with you a while? I frowned. I'm gonna walk up. Will he manage? Alan suddenly hugged me. Anywhere is fine if it's with my wife. The system was silent. I considered it. All right. I brought Alan back to the old apartment building. He was so good-looking the aunties in the corridor gathered around, curious. Miss Clark, is this your boyfriend? Alan beat me to it. No. I'm Miss Clark's husband. Married, then. Miss Clark, you're blessed, your husband's a fine-looking man. Alan smiled. Not many knew him here, but to be safe, I masked him up. We climbed to the 6th floor. At the end of the hall, I spotted 2 thin figures. The little coworker from the shop. Miss, over here. I glanced at the short boy beside her. And this is? Amy arched a brow. My brother. He's pretty handsome, right? Suits you, miss? You said dinner, since you were busy, I brought him over. Who's that next to you? She'd noticed Alan. Alan snorted. Is it that hard? He took my hand. Wife, puppy's shy, let's not invite them in. He slipped the key from my fingers, opened the door like he owned it, and slammed it in their faces. For an instant, I thought he'd recovered. But when he turned around, he was in tears, accusing me, wife, that damned dog bullied me. Puppy had his teeth sunk into Alan's hem. Payback. I rubbed Puppy's head and he let go. Alan made a face at him. See? My wife still treats me best. I wasn't used to him calling me wife. I told him to stick with Miss Clark, like before. He dug in his heels. No. Wife, what are we having for dinner? I considered it. I ordered lunch on the Cat app. Tonight I can use a voucher on the group app, lots of promos lately. Alan's expression was complicated. Have you been living on takeout here? It's convenient. I didn't see the problem. In the end, it was the 2 of us and 1 dog, with a table full of stir-fry from plastic boxes. The rice cooker steamed. When I finished feeding Puppy and came back, there was a fresh bowl of hot soup. I realized then that the happiness I'd been chasing might just be a bowl of hot soup. Over dinner, Alan asked lightly, "Wife, before we married, did lots of people chase you?" I smiled. "No. My back is all scars, and I'm strong, who would like me?" They were too busy being afraid. Back at the home, whenever we upset a teacher, they'd slice a knife across our backs. They said it helped us remember. There were many girls bullied like me. In that boundless dark, we pinned our hopes on the future. When we're adopted, when we have parents, we won't suffer anymore. When we grow up and marry, our partners will protect us. But I waited, and waited. One child after another got adopted. It was never my turn. After adulthood I kept waiting. Waiting to build a home of my own, for someone to protect me. By the time all my friends had married, I was still alone. So I learned boxing. I wouldn't fear walking alone at night. I wouldn't see a razor and be dragged back into nightmares. Only sometimes, sitting at home eating cold takeout, I felt a little lonely. Alan reached over and wiped the tears from my lashes. "I'm sorry." Puppy, sensing my mood shift, came and lay across my feet. "It's okay. I'm doing well now, really." These days, Alan did nothing but stay home with me. He thought even that wasn't enough and asked to come with me to work, but I refused. Given his identity, it wasn't smart to go out, and with the system's silence for reasons unknown, I worried more. What troubled me most, though, was that Alan had picked up a notion somewhere that a married couple ought to sleep in the same bed. He pestered me over it, insisting on moving from the guest room to the master to share my bed. We used to sleep in separate rooms. But we're husband and wife. What was before is before. When Alan dug in, he was impossible. That night he knocked on my door hugging a quilt. "Wife, open up." When I opened it, there were those disciplined muscle lines across his torso. I'd seen bodies at the boxing gym, sure. But I still averted my eyes on reflex. A little embarrassed. He lay down beside me, warm breath brushed my earlobe. Something tickled in my chest. Heat rose in my cheeks. I didn't know where to rest my gaze. The corded veins, the soft pink lips, the bob of his throat, click. I turned off the light. No taking advantage of the vulnerable. Just as I'd managed to steady myself, a strong arm slid around my waist. "Wife. Maybe we'll sleep better if we hold each other." The next morning, he was up early making breakfast. After we ate, he grabbed an umbrella to walk me to the convenience store. On the stairs we met Aunt Mary, heading out for groceries. "Miss Clark, your husband's walking you to work today?" I blinked, then couldn't help smiling. Yes, my husband's walking me." Aunt Mary laughed to Aunt Susan behind her. "Look at that couple, so loving. The store's just downstairs, but he can't bear to be apart even those few steps." "Exactly. I saw him bring home flowers the other day," said Baby's Breath is Miss Clark's favorite. "When she'd just moved in, I thought the girl seemed so pitiful and I wanted to help more. Seems I overthought it." When I looked back at Alan, there was a small smile at his mouth as well. "They were complimenting you." Alan tipped his head back slightly. "What's the big deal? You're my wife. It's only right." The weather wasn't great that day. Humid and rainy, the kind of day I usually hate. But somehow I suddenly felt that rainy days might be nice, too. The scent of grass wet with rain, and the faint soap fragrance on him, both smelled wonderful. In the afternoon, seeing a customer holding a small cake reminded me it was Alan's birthday. Last year, Alan told me he never celebrated, because the day his parents died in a car crash was his birthday. But now that Alan didn't remember those things, I thought he might want to. I asked my boss to let me off early and bought a birthday cake at the bakery nearby. Passing a flower shop, I picked up a bundle of Baby's Breath. I planned to head home early and surprise Alan. I had just taken out the key to unlock the door when I heard voices inside. Old buildings don't insulate sound well. "Alan, how long are you going to keep pretending?" I froze, my hand paused on the key. That sounded like Amy's brother. A few seconds later, Alan answered evenly, "And you, Annie Keith, got addicted to cross-dressing? Planning to chase my wife now?" Annie sighed. "I didn't want to show up between you two either, but some crappy thing called a system found me, claimed I'm the heroine, said you need me and told me to come back to wreck your marriage. I don't know if it short-circuited or what, trying to turn me into a homewrecker. So that's why the system hadn't shown up lately, it was busy working on Annie. But it buzzed in my ear like a mosquito, so I came to wreck things just to shut it up. To be fair, I do look pretty handsome in men's clothes, don't I?" Alan chuckled. "I haven't congratulated you, Professor Keith, becoming the person you wanted to be, standing at the very top." Annie mocked him. "Know why you aren't as brilliant as I am? The wise win degrees, the lovelorn win nothing. I soared through grad school because you're just a love-addled fool." Alan took an unhurried sip of tea, not conceding an inch. "But I have a wife." "You don't." Annie paused, then said, "Unbelievable." She remembered the point. "The company, our people say they're moving. Are you ready to pull the net tight?" Wait a little longer. I haven't won my wife over yet. Annie looked at him like he was hopeless. Fine, I'm leaving. I barely managed to crash that system, no need to let it start nagging me again. She opened the door suddenly. I didn't have time to hide. Seeing me, she wasn't surprised. She greeted me calmly, then looked back at Alan. Looks like you can't keep the act up now. Even I hadn't expected my first reaction. It wasn't to question what Alan was hiding, but to be glad he was okay. The tension at his mouth eased the moment he saw my smile. It's a pity about the cake. I thought you might want to celebrate. I'll take it downstairs to Aunt Mary. Wait. Alan gently took the cake from my hands, opened the box, cut it into slices, and set aside 2 pieces. These 2 are for us. I'll go with you to deliver the rest. Okay. Aunt Mary opened the door, delighted at the cake. What's this sudden cake delivery? Someone's birthday? I glanced at Alan, uncertain. He smiled. Yes, Aunt Mary, mine's today. Alan walked the building with me, handing out cake floor by floor. Ivana. He stopped me suddenly. This setup wasn't just for the company. I also wanted to understand what you think. You've never asked me for anything, and I've never learned what kind of life you want. I wondered if, by taking part in your past, understanding how you lived, I might know what kind of future you want, what kind of partner you want. He looked at me and curved a faint smile. I think I know a little now. The cake was sweet. Sweet enough to make happiness feel real. When we got home that night, Alan was showering. Steam seeped through the crack under the bathroom door. Heat rolled out with it. I pulled out my phone to crowdsource advice. How do you casually bring up, with your husband, that you have physiological needs? Replies came fast. OP, someone just asked this. Scroll up the thread. Why are there so many unfamiliar married couples these days? When my husband and I first wed, we were at it morning and night. I opened the link they shared. It was an anonymous post from half an hour ago. How could I naturally end up in the same bed as my wife? There were lots of tips in the comments. The top liked one seemed the most practical. OP, here's what worked for me: soak your own bed. If you have a pet, say it knocked over some water. Then it's only natural to share a bed with your wife. I knew the internet had real wisdom. This could work. I filled a basin in the kitchen and, without hesitation, splashed it across my mattress. I opened the door, about to go find Alan. And there he was at my doorway, hugging a pillow, looking troubled. Ivana, puppy just tipped a basin in the guest room. The bed's soaked, so I was thinking. I glanced back at the wet bed behind me. Alan blinked in surprise. I cleared my throat. Maybe, Puppy came to my room too. We looked at each other, and both burst out laughing. Only Puppy barked in indignant protest beside us. There's another option. Alan suggested, since we can't sleep here tonight, why not get a hotel? My ears went hot. I think, that could work. Maybe I was too self-conscious at the hotel desk. The receptionist took ages confirming our relationship. She only relaxed when Alan produced our marriage certificate. The elevator doors slid open. We'd barely stepped out. When Alan abruptly lowered his head and kissed me. The kiss was fierce and claiming. I looped my arms around his shoulders and answered with equal heat and hunger. We fumbled the door open. He carried me in, kissing me all the way to the bedroom. Ivana. My name. It sounds beautiful. I woke with a start the next morning. I'd had a terrifying dream. The world collapsed, everything dissolved into nothing. Ivana, bad dream. Alan slid an arm around my waist and kissed me. I need to swing by the company. I'll come back later for dinner, okay? I nodded. Okay. By unspoken agreement, neither of us mentioned divorce again. As if it had never been said. We began living as a married couple in the true sense. He knew I loved this life. After work, he'd come eat with me, or walk me through the park, sometimes chat with Aunt Mary, even childishly compete with a newlywed neighbor over who loved his wife more. But a little unease lingered in me. As if the happiness wasn't quite real. Days passed. At some point, I realized the good things were changing. Aunt Mary, who'd always cared for her health, was suddenly diagnosed with cancer. The newlyweds began to fight constantly, domestic violence. Then I heard the old metallic voice, if you don't follow the set trajectory, you lose the protagonist's halo. Everything you've gained will slip away. Utterly foolish. The system's words soon proved true. Alan's assistant called, trouble at the company. All the insiders we'd placed by the villain were exposed. The evidence we'd scraped together with such effort was overturned. No one knew better than Alan that digging up old crimes was hard, now revenge would be like climbing to heaven. Somehow, he knew. They say an anonymous tip handed him everything. But we never spoke of this to anyone. Alan was cautious, he wouldn't trust easily. The only possibility, the system itself had intervened. Destroying a person is simple, just destroy all his hopes. Alan shut himself in a room and withered day by day. Puppy barked himself hoarse at the door, he still wouldn't come out. I worried about him and sat outside every day, sharing whatever had happened. At last, one day, he opened the door. His face was haggard, eyes shot with red. The first thing he said was, "Is the system truly that powerful?" He'd hunted long for the leak and found nothing. Until Annie mentioned the system. Thread by thread, he reasoned everything out. He understood how I'd just happened to be on that rooftop to stop him. He understood why, out of nowhere, I'd asked for a divorce. All of it, because of the system. The system called itself the world's maker. It set the rules by which this world ran. Those it created had to obey unconditionally, or be punished. Alan made up his mind. "Ivana Clark, come out with me." I blinked. "Where?" "The registry office," he said steadily. "Let's get divorced." After we left the registry, I returned to life as one woman and one dog. The baby's breath on the table withered, bit by bit. No one ladled me a hot bowl of soup anymore. Alan left a bank card on the nightstand. Enough money to move into a much better place. I asked Puppy, "Want to live somewhere bigger?" He shook his head. He only gnawed on the toy Alan had bought him and kept vigil at Alan's bedroom door. I kept telling myself there was nothing to be reluctant about. Life is one long goodbye. Sooner or later, everyone you meet leaves. You have to get used to it. Besides, when I counted the days, even if we hadn't divorced, our original deadline for me to leave this world was almost up. Whether the mission was complete or not, I'd be sent back to the real world. I found a new adopter for Puppy. A little girl from an ordinary but happy family. I took him to see her every day. He liked her very much. When I left, maybe he wouldn't be so lonely. On the last day, I tidied the apartment and went to my shift as usual. Puppy must have sensed something. He was clingier than ever, teeth in my pant leg, refusing to let go. I lied and said I'd be off early today. He finally released me, barked several times at my back. After leaving home, I didn't go to the store. I grabbed a cab to where Alan was living now. The internet was full of ugly news about him. I didn't know how he was doing. Just as I stepped out of the taxi, a call came from an unknown number. "Madam, it's me, President Smart's assistant. Could you come over? He's been very strange. He donated all his money, and he's been saying strange things. He just went out. I'm afraid he's going to do something rash." Alan's car appeared near the villain's house. The assistant and I split up to look for him. In a derelict parking lot, I found Alan gripping a knife. He was covered in blood. There was no life in his eyes, just as he'd been the first moment I met him in this world. "Too bad, you can't kill me." The villain stepped out, unhurried. The wound in his abdomen was knitting, slowly. "After today, there will be no Alan in this world. Every trace you existed will be erased." Alan's face was expressionless, he didn't even resist. As if he had known this ending all along. "Your life has been a joke from the start. Let me end it, be grateful I'm doing you the favor." That tone. The system. Blood kept spilling from Alan's wounds. So cold. As cold as the wind on the rooftop that day. But back then, a girl had reached out her hand. She'd looked thin, yet her strength was shocking, dragging him off the ledge by sheer will. He didn't understand why he'd seen pity in her eyes. After that, the girl followed him, protecting him openly and in the dark. Once, he'd thought the only person who cared whether he lived or died had already died, whether he lived no longer mattered. But later, she saved him again and again. In the age when a girl most longs to be beautiful, she'd scored her arm with scars for him, ugly, permanent scars. He began to feel his life wasn't his alone anymore. And now, this life could save her. If he died, she could return safely to her world. Then he would gladly die. He would count it repaying the debt. But as the blood ran out and breath grew labored, he suddenly wanted to see her once more. He wanted to tell her. He'd liked her for a very, very long time. Too bad. Alan. Seeing him drifting toward unconsciousness, I rushed forward calling his name. I grabbed his hand and said, "Come with me." I cleared a path for him. Boxing hadn't just taught me to protect myself, it had taught me to protect those I cared for. Annie's car was parked not far away. She shouted for us to get in, said she had a way to save him. An experimental drug, a major breakthrough. It hasn't been tested in humans, but for Alan it's a sliver of life. Maybe the system's right that luck played a part in how high I've climbed. But the effort I spent, the trials I weathered, that's real. I don't believe I've lived this long just on some heroine's halo. I carved this road myself. If I can find a way to save Alan, I can find a way to change how this world runs. Annie did it. She broke free of the system's control. She brought Alan back from the brink. I was so happy I ran to see him. But as I pushed the door open, everything began to shatter into fragments. I couldn't take a step. At the very end, all I could do was look once at Alan on the bed, still not awake. I remembered what he'd said once. If the time comes to part, don't cry. Smile. Smile and look forward to the day we meet again. When I woke in the hospital, I was surrounded by people. Friends from the home. The boy I'd saved from the car crash and his family. Many, many doctors and nurses. Ivana, you're finally awake. We heard what happened and rushed over. A spray of baby's breath sat by the bed, my favorite. You can't live alone like this. Move in with me, let's be roommates. No way. I'm closest to Ivana, she's living with me. Ivana, what's wrong? Why aren't you talking? I shook my head. I'm fine. Oh, while you were out, a stray dog somehow showed up outside your room door and barked a bunch. Security chased it away. Strange, how'd it get into a hospital? I thought of something, tore out the four, and ran downstairs. Puppy? A little dog trotted out from the side and wagged his tail at me. Woof. Later, and later still, holding Puppy, I found a place just like our old walk-up. Puppy, do you think, someday, we'll meet Alan again? Puppy suddenly jumped from my arms, dashed into the building, and barked at a tall, thin silhouette. Woof. Maybe love was never part of the plan. But somewhere between the lies and the missions, I think I truly fell for him. And now, even if this world forgets me, I'll remember him. Always.